So we're back, and it's been a little while because there's a mini-me running around, so that doesn't leave much time for anything. Um, we'll do this real quick, partly because the battery's almost dead, so it's going to limit us. This is going to be a T5 swap. I'm going to try and cover it as best as I can. We got a T5 that I rebuilt here. That didn't get covered for a number of reasons. I took it to a friend's shop and we did it together just to knock it out. It was in pretty bad shape. It had mud and water in it. So anyways, we went through that. I don't cover rebuilding T5s. If you want to see that, there's videos. There's a couple of really good videos on YouTube, not on my channel. Maybe I'll even drop a link down in the comments or something. Maybe I can put it up. Maybe I can put it up here. I'm not sure. Anyways, we're going to do a T5 swap. We're going to take the C4 out. Let me show you why. Here is the why. There is a substantial ATF leak coming out of it, and I think it's the front seal. I don't know why it started leaking. There could be a number of reasons for it, and to me, it's not even worth my time to try and troubleshoot it at this point. I suspect it's probably because something's not right with the front bushing or the torque converter, and it wore out the seal because it wasn't leaking, and now it is. So we have a number of mixture components here. Let me see how much I can cover before my battery dies. But some stuff came from Modern Driveline, some stuff I got from a friend, some stuff I ordered from Summit. I want trouble-free. So we got the Tilton hydraulic release bearing. This is now some of this stuff isn't a cheap date, guys, and I'm sure you might be able to figure something out from some of the Ford Rangers use this stuff, but I wanted something that was fully adjustable and everything, and this is it. So this is a Tilton hydraulic release bearing. I'll show you the pedal setup in a second. That's already installed in the car. Like I said, we got the T5. I got Modern Driveline's shifter, and the reason I went with that is because for the Mustangs this works the best. It's got an adapter that moves it closer. I prefer the Hurst shifters personally. I have a history with those. I prefer that over the stock looking deal. I did call up Modern Driveline, and I'd got a number of components from them. It's in various states. The speedometer cable that works for the T5. They even sent me oil, which I didn't really need, but they threw it on there, and I didn't bother to tell them don't send it. But let's see, what else have we got? This is a throw-out bearing that I don't need, but it came with the clutch. This is the reservoir for the Mallwood. That you don't get that from Modern Driveline. They don't sell it, but the Mallwood pedal setup. This is the hydraulic reservoir for it. So there's just various parts in here: shifter boot, trans mount, the cross member you just saw, a number of small parts, pilot bearing, pressure plate bolts. Really not a whole lot to this. Here's the clutch. I did get an original flywheel with it, and by the time I find somebody that can surface it, and it's probably about $150 to have it surfaced, it was cheaper, or about the same, not cheaper, but the same price to get the Modern Driveline 136 tooth flywheel. It's billet. It's new. I don't have to worry about it being warped or machined or anything. It's here. It's done. So I did go ahead with that. Diaphragm clutch. The clutch disc is in here. This is the engine plate to go with the bell housing. We'll cover the adapter plate here and the bell housing. This is off of a 60. I'm going to double check, but it's off of a 67 and up, I think is what it is. This uses the 9-inch clutch. There are two options for this. Modern Driveline has got great write-up on it, so I'm not going to cover it in detail. But this is there's an 8.5 and a 9-inch clutch. I went with a 9-inch clutch because I was able to get a 9-inch bell housing from a 60. It's either 67 or 69 and up. I forget. So it does fit the dual pattern block for 66 and up. This will not work on a 65. On a 65, you got to use an 8.5 clutch. You don't have a choice. So I have to go to a 2-bolt starter with this. With the 8.5 clutch, you can stay with your 3-bolt C4 starter, but not for this guy. You got to go to a 2-bolt. So we got a starter down there as well. This is the adapter plate. They make a few different adapter plates for this. This particular bell housing uses what they call the Ford wide pattern. There is a number of, there's the oddball one for the Dagenham 3-speed that was a piece of junk. That'll work for the 8.5-inch bell housing. At any rate, this is the Ford wide adapter. Requires some slight modification here. You drill a couple holes, and so you can bolt the adapter plate on. The reason that you have to drill holes is because the holes for the T5 obviously overlap with the original holes. So there's no way to get around that. So anyways, tomorrow we'll jump into this. We're gonna do the bell housing alignment and stuff. That's gonna take the longest. I don't think I'm gonna have to shorten the drive shaft, but we'll see. But the rest of this is really just a kind of a bolt-up job. So tomorrow we'll get into it, and then eventually I got some 320 gears for the 7 1/4 sitting here, 7 1/4 rear end sitting here. So we'll be able to install those at some point because I got to get rid of the 283s with this. Oh, and if I didn't mention it, the last thing I'll say is this is out of an 86 GT. It's a world-class T5, so it's fully bearinged. If you know anything about T5s, this has got all the bearings and it doesn't have any bushings. It's a 0.68 overdrive. They made a number of variations of it, but this is what would have come in. This did come in a 1986 Mustang GT. So it's been fully rebuilt, a lot of new components inside of it, or at least better components than it had. I did mention too that I would show you the pedal assembly. I almost forgot. So this is the Mallwood assembly, and don't get it confused. I'm not saying Willwood. I'm saying Mallwood, Malwood. They make a number of these. This is super slick, and I know you can't see it, but you can look it up on their website. It bolts to the brake bracket, the original bracket that's in there. You can install it in the car. I did. You just cut the original pedal for the brake and put the correct manual pad on there. It comes with everything else for the pedal. I think I had to order the bezel separately, but I think it came with a pad. I've still got to route this outside the car, under the hood somewhere for the reservoir. But the cylinder, the master for the clutch, is up in there. You can see it. It's all under the dash. So this is and it's all hydraulic, of course. And it's slick. You don't have to mess with the Z-bar. You don't have to mess with putting a master underneath the hood, which I really couldn't with power brakes. I don't even know how you do that with power brakes. I'm sure that it can be done, but it sure looked difficult. This setup is nice. This stupid thing costs way too much, but it's the right answer. It fits all underneath here. It came with the pedal, the arm. It literally just bolts in here. You don't have to make any modifications. It comes with a new pin that goes through both the bracket for this as well as the original brake pedal arm. It's fairly easy to install, aside from getting up in here and trying to get your hands in here is a real pain in the ass. I took the brake handle and the fresh air vent handle. I moved that out of the way to get to it. But other than that, it's pretty easy to install. Started disassembly here. I'm putting everything in a plastic box, so anybody that needs a C4 kit, or most of the parts you'll need to do a C4 swap, I'll have them in a box, and maybe somebody will want that. I'm sure that they will. We got it up on all fours here. This is the best I can do with not having a lift, but I drain the fluid. It makes it easier when you take the yoke out and everything. It doesn't spill everywhere when you drop the trans. So it's just a matter of disassembling everything at this point. I'm not covering that part of it. I'm more interested in covering the specifics of putting a T5 in a 66 Mustang as far as alignment of the bell housing and any specifics. So getting the shifter to line up, e-brake cable, speedometer cable, all those kind of things, where I'm going to put my hydraulic line. C4 is out. It's always fun trying to do that. I've got it down pretty good, though. I've done it a few times now. I even got smarter this time, pulled the front wheel off just to give myself more room. But anyways, we just got a big open hole there. I pulled the flex plate and the engine plate off. checking it out. I'm looking to make sure that the rear main's not leaking or anything. I don't see any oil back there. There's no oil on the, in the block area or on the plate. So there's, I think Jeff did a good job sealing this motor up. So the next thing I'm going to do is put the I've got to move the dowel pin. So that's something that's specific here that I wanted to talk about. See the dowel pin up there on these dual pattern blocks. The C4 uses the lower set of holes up there. Let me see if I can zoom in a little bit there. See how there's two sets of holes there? See the dowel pin is on the lower hole, kind of on the right side of the block. So that dowel pin's got to move up to that hole that's just over to the left and up. So, and we want to take it out. We don't want to damage it because that's part of what centers this thing. So anyways, we'll move that one dowel pin and put the we're going to put the plate on the flywheel. We'll get it bolted down and get the bell housing in here by itself, which normally you can't install it that way. You can't put the trans in with the bell housing already. It's got to go in as one piece. But I will check the alignment, the trueness, the centering of it. I also have to put the pilot bushing in there too. Obviously, I got to clean that out and put the pilot bushing in there. And we'll check it out, see how true it is, see if we need to make any adjustments to it. One revision to what I said was you only have to move the one dowel. I was wrong. You actually have to move both. And I think maybe the 8.5 inch is different. I'm not sure. But for this particular bell housing, the 9-inch bell housing, I had to move it from where that open hole is there to where the pin is now. And then of course this one moved from right there to right there. And it is kind of a pain to get them out and use a vice grips. You will mar them up a little bit, file them, file the burrs off of them. You want to be careful because that's what sets the centering of the bell housing. So if we screw them up too much, it's going to throw the centering of the bell housing off, and we don't want to do that. So worst case scenario, I replace them. Also, they do make these in an offset cut. So basically that means that like the end that goes in the block is offset from the end that goes into the bell housing. That's to shift the bell housing if the centering's bad. It's more important to have this centered and true on the T5s and the Trem, especially the Trem X, than it is on the old, 4-speed gearboxes and stuff. Those don't have bearings in them that care so much. But the T5, it does care. And if it's off, especially if it's off a lot, it'll actually keep the input shaft moving even when the clutch is in. You don't want that. At a minimum, it could cause whining. It could cause premature wear. So we got to make sure we nail this and get this correct. So the engine plate goes in next, then the flywheel. Don't forget to seal these bolt holes. I'm not sure if there's supposed to be a dowel pin or not. I'll take a look at the flywheel and see if there is or not. It doesn't matter, though, I don't think, because all it really does is help with indexing. The lip on the crank will do that. We'll put the pilot bushing in and see if we can get the dial indicator on this and see where we're at. All right, here it is. Got the engine plate installed. There was a couple of rough areas on it that I wanted to flatten out. That is right there. It looks like I filed it because I did. Got the flywheel in. So the next thing we're going to do is put the bell housing in without the trans and get a dial indicator on it, and we're going to check and see how true it is to the bell housing. True and centering. So we need to make sure it's centered in the hole, and we need to make sure that it's true, meaning that it's not, rocked back and forth like that. So that would be checking the face of the adapter plate, and then of course the inside radius of the adapter plate. We'll check both of those things. It's going to be a little bit difficult in here. But I'll be able to get a pretty good idea of how far off it is or isn't. And then we'll figure out a way to deal with it once we get there. If it requires me to make a little modification to the bell housing or worst case, change the dowel pins maybe. I'm not sure yet. I'm really not too sure what we're going to run into with this. I've done a lot of clutches, but I've never done one where I was putting a trans and bell housing on an engine that didn't have it before. So, this is a little new to me, mixing and matching all these parts together. So we'll see how it actually works out when I get it in here. All right, so let me show you what I'm doing here. It's very tight, but see, I've got my mag mount dial indicator on the flywheel in there. I've got this torqued down, so everything's true. And so far I've rotated it about 70 degrees, I'd say, or so, and we're still 0. So I'm probably not going to be able to get it all the way around, but I can probably get it, I can probably get it between here and here. And if it's 0 between here and here, then I know that the face is true. So you got to make sure that the face is totally flat. And then the other thing we're going to do, which I have a little less faith in, is the centering here. I'm not positive how tight we're going to be there or not, but we'll give it a shot. So, but anyways, the face is looking good so far. So I'm just going to continue just hand rotating. I've got my breaker bar over there, and just rotate it a little bit, check it, rotate it, check it. You do want to be careful. I wish that they hadn't have done this actually, because the indicator will actually get stuck in this, and then I have to start over again because you have to readjust it. But we'll just keep rotating it a little bit, and make sure that we're, I think, within about 6 thousandths. I think we want this. I think we want it to be around within 6 thou. So. All right, so here's what we got. I'm not going to have to do anything with it. I think we're pretty good. The trueness, or the run out, I'll call it, of the flywheel against the bell housing is spot on. It's out maybe 2-3 thousandths. Up in this area, it's off a little bit. As for centering, we're a little bit further out. It's closer to 6 or so, 6 to 8 maybe. It was really hard to get the measurement because it's just so hard to get it to turn in here. So I don't know if it was. I think that I kept bumping it and I kept trying to get it away from there, but it was around 6 to 8, which I think that says 6. 2 thousandths isn't going to break the bank. It's not like it's out, 15 thousandths. It's not going to destroy anything like that. What you want to do is make sure it's not out, 15 to 30 thousandths, something ridiculous, because that'll eat up the pilot bushing. It'll also make it where it doesn't want to shift because the pilot bushing will be turning the input shaft. We don't want that. And really that's more about this face being parallel. The centering can do it too, but that's, like I said, it's out about 6, and it seems to be up in this area, but I don't want to mess with it because I think I'm afraid I'm going to make it worse. So it's close enough. It's close enough for, this is not, this isn't that precision machining. The bushing is more forgiving than a bearing is anyways. So we're going to call that good. Clutch is in. No real magic there. It installs like any other clutch. But what we are going to do is check the dimension from the fingers to the face of the mounting surface here. That's what you have to do for these Tilton bearings. They're adjustable depth, and we want to make sure we get the right depth. So we take this dimension of these fingers to the face here, and we are going to subtract 0.125, which is 1/8 of an inch. That's what they tell you to do, and that'll be the set depth height, and I'll show you how to do that on the trans when we get there. But right now, what we'll do is, working without any means of holding the camera, we will take a straightish edge, and we will place it across here, and we will use the caliper depth on the caliper to the dial caliper to check the depth. So, I'm sure I'm not going to teach people how to use a dial caliper here, but the dial caliper does depth, so we can check the depth. They tell you got to be within 5 thousandths, which just is kind of comical to me. Why does it need to be within 5 thousandths of an inch? That's silly. I could see 15 thousandths, but 5 thousandths is ridiculous. I don't think it. I'm going to override their engineering there. 5 thousandths of an inch is too tight. And then they show you in the manual from the Tilton bearing, they show you, like lining up the face of the the bottom of the caliper with the face of the straight edge, and it's, what are you supposed to do? Eyeball that? There's no way to there's no way to align it. It's going to be off a little bit. So I find that quite comical. So I have to show you what I mean, but it's pretty funny. If you were to take this edge right here, the bottom of the caliper, they're telling you to just kind of align that with the straight edge, which, if you want 5,000ths accuracy, you're not going to get that way. So we'll do our best. I may measure to the other end of to this side of the straight edge, and then just deduct the straight edge thickness. So it's exactly 4 inches, which makes sense. So it's 4 inches from the finger to this mounting surface here. So we want to subtract 0.125 from that. That's easy. It's 1 7/8. So 3 7/8. So we got to set the depth of the Tilton bearing at 3 7/8. All right, so here's what we got. I got the Tilton bearing. Modern driveline gives you this spacer. I'm not sure if we need this yet or not. It says something about being used in a T56. I'll figure out here real quickly, because I know that this needs to be 3 7/8. So that goes on there. This is how it adjusts right here. So this collar inside of here unscrews, see? And it's got a little O-ring. The O-ring keeps it from rotating, kind of holds it in place. And then, of course, we have our anti-rotation stud right there that this lines up with. So this would slide on here like this. And I kept the aluminum snout on here. It's worn, but who cares, because it's not ever going to get used. It's strictly being used with the hydraulic bearing, so it doesn't matter. So we'll just check this dimension from here, from any of the mounting surface to here, and we know that needs to be 3 7/8. So the way that Tilton describes doing this, we want to, of course, you want to measure from this surface here, the mounting surface of the trans, which on the bell housing side, that's what the adapter plate mates up with this surface. And we check the dimension from the fingers, which would contact the throw-out bearing right here, to the back of the plate, which is the same mounting surface. So we know that we want to subtract 0.125. I've already set this up, actually. I'm just showing you. But this collar back behind here screws in and out, and Modern Driveline gives you this spacer to get it closer, which is nice. Anyways, what they describe, Tilton describes, is, they want you within 5,000ths, but then they show the guy in their image, in their diagram, they show him like lining the edge of the caliper here up with the edge of the ruler. It's like, you're going to be off by, a 1/16 of an inch probably, or maybe a 32nd, but still nowhere close to 5,000ths. So the way that I did it was, for me, I just measured my straight edge, and it's pretty consistent all the way across the board. It's coming in at about 1.03 when I measure it, which this isn't precise science anyways. Hold on a second here. 1.05. I'm doing this very terribly here. Let's try it this way. So at any rate, you want to get close, right? So 1.035, 1.03, and it's pretty consistent all the way across. I've checked it. But anyways, I just add that, or I measure from this edge instead, and then I subtract 1.03. So, if I check this now, I'm trying to do this in front of the camera, which isn't the easiest thing in the world. Let me switch hands here. I should put the camera on the other side. I check it from this edge to the mounting surface, and you want to make sure you hold the straight edge up against the bearing as flat as you can. See, and then we're checking this here. So 4.856, so I would subtract 1.03, and that's my setting. So as you can see, 875 is, so I'm very close. 875 is the measurement that we want, and it's actually 3.875. You can't see it because it's not in frame. I'm at 4.85 right now, so I need to check this and make sure I've got it correct. But I'm very close. So remember I mentioned that the distance from the fingers to the adapter plate on the bell housing was 4 inches. So we want this to be 4 inches minus 0.125, which is what they specify. So you're leaving an extra 0.125 gap or an eighth of an inch. And I'm adding an inch though by using this straight edge like this. So I have to deduct the 1.03. So I'm going to go through and check this again. I did set it up last night, but I was double checking the dimensions, and it looks like I might be 30 thousandths shy, which is possible. I was pretty tired last night. But anyways, it's not an exact science in my opinion, because the way they tell you to measure this, you can't. By the time that I get my straight edge all the way out here, and especially the way they show it, where they have you measuring it right here, it's pretty ridiculous. They want you within 5 thousandths, but I could fudge 10 thousandths and you wouldn't even see it visually, So, because let's see, there's 3.875, which is where we want to be. 3.88, that's close enough, within 5 thou. I mean, I can't even see the difference if I measure it like that, especially if you change the angle or whatnot. So the more accurate way is to measure it, in my opinion, to do it this way, because at least you have an edge to put this against. So I've just been doing some touches, avoiding getting underneath the car again. I'm putting it in assembled, I think, unless I can't. Obviously I got the shifter on there because I was checking the neutral, safety, and reverse switches, but that obviously it can't be on there. But I am putting it in assembled as far as the bell housing, the throw-out bearing, and everything goes. It looks like if I really wanted to, I probably could put the bell housing in and try and feed it with the throw-out bearing assembly. It was hard enough to get together here on the ground, so I think I'm going to try and put it in assembled. I've done most of the newer transmissions don't even have removable bell housings. I've done those many times, so the hard part is going to be getting it in the car, threading this up behind the kind of up through the exhaust there. I might have to drop the exhaust for this. The C4 comes out without it. I'm not sure about this. I had to do a couple of weird things here. I didn't have the neutral safety switch. The jury's out whether I'm going to use it still or not. I'm going to try. This actually is a neutral switch for the computers on the 80s Mustangs. It wasn't actually the neutral safety switch. They have a clutch switch, what they normally use. This is just to tell the computer that it's in neutral, I think. But at any rate, I had some issues there. I had to grind the pin down and stuff to get it to work right, so who knows if that's going to be right. The reverse switch is in there. It's still good. So I went and put some weather pack connectors on these. I made some new leads. Let me show you that. So here's the new ones that I made. These are just regular, I forget what these connectors are called, DC battery connectors or something. There's a name for them, I can't remember. Anyways, I put weather pack connectors, like I said, and I polarized them so I know that, like, this one's red. That's the red one. That's for reverse lights. Red is reverse lights. And blue, which is down in there, blue is neutral safety. So this one will be blue, neutral safety. And you see I use different ends on them, so when I plug them in down there, it's foolproof. I like doing that. So anyways, I'm going to plug this in over here, and then these will be ready to go. So I got to put the speedo cable in. Take the old speedo cable out. It's not too difficult to get out, but I'll get to it. I want to do it while the trans is not in the car. It's easier. Then the hydraulic line for the clutch and the reservoir. I'm going to have to figure out where I'm going to poke through to do the reservoir, and I'll probably put it right there. I imagine probably be the best place for it. So there's still a little bit of work to do, but the trans, I think, is pretty much ready to go in. Don't see any reason why it can't. Here's the old C4. I think we're good. This is torqued. These go to 19 foot-pounds, which actually is pretty low in my opinion, but it is going into aluminum for 7/16 bolts. So everything's torqued. We're aligned. We've got the distance set of the throw-out, the tilt and throw-out bearing. That's all set up. You don't lube the pilot shaft or anything. That bronze bushing has got it's got a lubricant that's impregnated into it. The inside of this bell housing is interesting. It looks to me like it might have had a clutch blow up in it. I'm almost certain that's what that is actually. Sometimes when clutches explode, these things never turn high enough RPM to blow up a bell housing, an aluminum bell housing. But when you're racing and you turn 7,000 RPM and a clutch explodes, it'll actually blow this right off the back of the motor, and it'll go through the floorboard, and it's actually cut people's feet off before. But these things, they're turning 5,500, 6,000 RPM. It's a little less likely. But that sure looks like that's what happened in there. It definitely looks like it shattered. So anyhow, it's ready to go. Dan's coming down. He's going to help me today. And we'll get this thing loaded up. We're getting there. So trans obviously is in. I think I might have mentioned this before, I picked the Hurst shifter. I prefer this, and this seems to fit quite nicely. The only thing is it's a little close in the console here because I have a console unit. But it's enough. It's fine. It's not going to kick it out of gear or anything like that. And if I have to, I can always adjust the console. I was just trying to avoid doing that. Something of importance is that the drive shaft fits, no problem. Didn't need to shorten it. We ran into a little problem with the U-joint. I had some problems taking it apart. The yoke that was in the C4, the new yoke that I had, did not want to fit into the bushing. I had given him this yoke to size it, just as a check to make sure the splines were good. Actually, I don't think it was the bushing that it was hitting on. I think it was the splines just didn't want to mate up as well, because the splines on this output shaft were in pretty bad shape. So I switched back to the original yoke, which is still in good shape, which led to a bunch of problems with the U-joint. Ended up having to go grab another U-joint. Luckily, the local parts house had one, so no big deal there. But it doesn't. The drive shaft does not need to be shortened. There's still 1.5 to 2 inches of travel left in the yoke. So if if that comes up as a question, or it seems to come up as a question, if you're going from a C4 to a T5, you do not need to shorten the drive shaft. I think with the manual, if you're going from a 3-speed to a 5-speed, I think you might have to. So I just want to make sure I mention that. This all went together very easily. I still got a couple more bolts I got to put in on the dust cover, but other than that, it's all mated up. It didn't give me any problems. The only thing that we really ran into was, and I knew that the exhaust was going to be a problem for getting it in, and I did have to drop it from the collectors. So I dropped it from the collectors. I carry spare donuts, sealed donuts, so it's not a big deal. It's just a quick replacement. But that extra just couple of inches that you get makes all the difference in the world. It went in like butter once that was out of the way. We fought with it for a little while trying to get it up in here, though, with the exhaust in there, and we just started looking at the geometry of things and said, well, there's no way you can get the angle to go up over the exhaust and clear the top of the bell housing across the bottom of the engine plate. It just doesn't geometrically fit. We raised the car. That didn't make any difference. It just the tail housing was hitting on the inside of the tunnel. So, but just dropping the exhaust, it slipped right in with my little floor trans jack that I've got, and that was great. So now it's just a matter of that pretty much took it out on us for that night. We were pretty beat. So the rest is the cross member and all that's all in. That's trivial stuff. It's super easy. I got to put the e-brake cable in. There's a special spacer that I'll show you that goes on the e-brake cable, because the cross member is now a couple inches further back, or 1.5 inches further back than it was. That means your e-brake pivot is further back. So now the e-brake cable has got the wrong dimension, so they give you a spacer in the modern driveline kit. That's kind of why I'm digging the modern driveline thing. It costs, but you know what? They give you everything you need, which is I wouldn't have thought of that. I wouldn't have thought about the e-brake problem. And some people probably don't even hook it up, but I certainly want it hooked up, and it does work. So there's a little spacer that goes in there. Like I said, I got to fill it with oil. Don't forget to do that. No quicker way to ruin a Transduct if you don't fill it. And that's about it. The clutch hydraulic line is installed. The speedo cables here, I actually got that all hooked up underneath the dash already. I just took the hydraulic line and fed it in the same hole that the speedo cable is going in under here. Let me see if I can get around to that. I'm not sure if you can see it. Let's see. I'm not sure if it's in frame there or not, but the speedo cable goes in over here. And at any rate, there it is. There's the speedo cable and hydraulic line, and they do go through the same hole up there. I marked this so I know which one of these is the pressure side. The pressure side is the bottom of the throwout bearing, and this would be the top or the bleeder screw. So I have an adapter. Now the Tilton bearing, this is dash 4AN, I believe it is. And this is dash 3. And so I have a little adapter that I bought because the Malwood setup comes with dash 3. And this is dash 4, I think it is. I might have to clarify that. I can't remember if there's it goes like dash 3, 4, and then 6. I think there is no 5. But anyways, there's an adapter I've got in there for that. That wasn't included because Modern Driveline didn't know that I was using the Malwood. Well, I told them, but that's not something they supply. So that was a little bit of a scope gap there. I got my neutral safety switch and reverse lights here. So that's ready to go. I think I showed how I wired these up earlier. That was pretty easy. So anyways, we're going to just tie up some loose ends today. That's what we got to do. We got to bleed the hydraulic lines. That's going to take a little bit of effort. I've still got to get the reservoir in. Now this would be the thing to trip me up. The reservoir has to be above the level of the clutch master. And that means that down here where you see the line coming out down there, the rubber line, it's just coming out underneath this bulkhead connector. That bulkhead connector right there. The level of the fluid needs to stay above that bulkhead connector. And you can't put it anywhere in here because this is where the hood hinge goes. So that's not going to work. This looks really promising right here, but then I can't fill the thing. Like I could make a bracket and come up off of the master, and there's the proportioning valves down there, so I could probably build something for that. But then I can't get into this, and then I don't really want to put it way out here. And this isn't going to work. Maybe I could do some standoffs, or maybe I could build a bracket that's a standoff that screws into the firewall. Because right here would be pretty optimum, I'm thinking. But yeah, this is a tough one. There isn't like any natural place for this that this wants to live. It would almost be better to have a master cylinder that's got a hole tapped into it, that you just suck off the fluid that's in the master. But we're not going to do that. So anyways, I got to find a place for this. Let's see what we can come up with. So we just jumped right ahead here and we're done. Now I'm going to go over the things that were complicated, far more complicated than I thought. Here's the reservoir. That's where we ended up putting it. I put some nutserts into the firewall and used some spacers with some 2.5-inch quarter 20 hardware to get that spaced back correctly. That was really the only place that it could live, to be honest. You might have been able to kludge something else together, but it wasn't going to work for us in here, at least. I didn't have with the booster and everything. I suppose if you don't have power brakes, it might be easier. What other things were complicated that just kind of didn't anticipate? The clutch pedal stop. Let's talk about that for a second. So Modern Driveline tells you about this. Now, I don't know how necessary it is or isn't with their standard hardware. So I think if you're buying Modern Driveline's matched stuff, if you buy their master cylinder that actually goes under the hood here, not under the dash like mine is, I think that everything probably works out and you don't have to worry about this. But if you have a master cylinder that moves too much volume with the Tilton hydraulic bearing, or really any hydraulic release internal bearing, you can do a couple of things. You can hyperextend the clutch. So that means that diaphragm clutch that's in there, you could push it too far forward and actually bend it, and it'll destroy it, and then you're stuck putting a new clutch in it. And you can also, I think you can damage the master cylinder depending. There was something in the manual about damaging the master cylinder. I don't know how you could do that. If you, I guess if you're running the master cylinder to the end as the stop for the pedal, that would be bad. I guess that could damage the master cylinder. So you have to have a clutch pedal stop. So for those two reasons. Now mine, the Malwood setup, does have a pedal stop, but it's still, the stop is way too far. Now this is a tip for you guys when you do this. If you use that Malwood setup, I highly recommend putting a bolt on the tang that's at the end. Let me see if I can get under there and I'll show you. But I recommend putting a bolt with a nut and an adjustable stop. Right now it's just a metal tang that sticks out and the pedal hits this tang at the end. It needs a bolt as a stop. Now I had to do something a little bit kludgy to get it to work as a stop because I didn't want to take the pedal back out. That's a mess, and I'm being lazy. So, kind of came up with an idea. Dan had a really good idea to use a hose clamp and some shims. So I'll show that in a second. But basically that stops us from pushing the clutch slave cylinder out too far, because if it goes out too far, it will destroy the clutch. It can cause all kinds of problems. So we took care of that. The clutch feels really good. I haven't really driven it yet. We'll do that in a minute. We've pretty much pulled it forward and backed it out, is all we did yesterday. I still had some cleanup items to do. Probably less common of an issue, but if you have a console car, getting the 5-speed to fit in the console and actually go into reverse. I actually had to move the console over a little bit. Now it's tipped a little, which I don't like. It's tipped towards the passenger side, which irritates the crap out of me, but it's the only way to get enough room to grab 5th and 6th. Or, excuse me, 5th in reverse. Otherwise it was hitting the console. I couldn't quite get it in reverse. So that was a little bit annoying. I'm not super happy with the way that came out, but it looks okay. I also had to transfer my wood grain inserts from the old auto shift plate to these guys right here. And it doesn't look perfect, but I had to transfer them over, and I had to cut that one, the upper one that's curved down, to make it fit. Use some spray glue. This is pretty specific to this car, though. It's got the pony interior, so it has the cheap faux grain, but hey, I want it to look okay, or match anyways, so we did that. Let's see, e-brake. There's a spacer that goes on the e-brake. See it right there? There's the nut on the left, and then the spacer, and then the cable, and then the nut. So that's because the cross member is further back now. So I honestly, I think I probably could have made it work without that spacer, maybe, just with the nut adjustment, but whatever. They said to put it in there, so I put it in there. I'm not quite sure how that is supposed to work, because I don't see why. There was enough thread. Maybe some of them don't have enough thread. So we got that. Speedo cable's a little bit too long. I don't like that. I also have the wrong Speedo gear in it right now. I got a Speedo gear in it for 320s, and it's got 283s, but we'll leave it for now. It's just going to read slow, which is fine. That's not a big deal for now. I'm trying to decide whether I'm going to do the rear end myself or if I just take it somewhere. I don't really have the time. But everything else went in pretty normal under here. I didn't really have any issues. I think I showed you guys how to adjust the clutch depth for the slave cylinder. That's probably the most important part, is getting that right. Bleeding it was really easy. I just followed the instructions, had Dan work the clutch while I bled the air out of it, and it didn't give me any problems. It was really very simple. So anyways, let's give it a drive and see. you kind of want to be careful. You know, you want to make sure you don't get into a situation where you're not going to be able to get back. I mean, you can always get towed, but you know, you want to make sure things are working good. Work the clutch a few times before you take it out, because if something pops or something, you know, a line or cylinder or something's not right, you'll get stuck pretty quickly, and you know, you might be stuck trying to get it into gear and start it and limp it home. So anyways, I feel pretty confident though, so let's take it out. It seems to be pretty good. I had a little problem with the exhaust revving earlier, but I fixed that. Just grabbed third. So it's definitely a lot better. Honestly, it's more drivable than I thought it was going to be with the 283s in it. I could leave it like this, to be quite honest. Second, it's a little bit hard to drive here and video, but we'll get it. The clutch is a little on the high side. I suspect that's because it's new, although hydraulic it shouldn't do that, but it's fine. I mean, it's not like all the way at the end or anything like that. So anyways, this was a fun and interesting one. You know, it's been covered many times, so I didn't do it in detail. But I wanted to show some of the specifics, you know, adjusting the clutch, getting the height of the tilt and bearing right and stuff like that. So anyways, just wanted to show a little drive in it. It's pretty good. Worth mentioning, there was a rumble on the freeway, and that turned out, I thought, was maybe the drive shaft out of balance or something from when I put the new U-joint in it. It turned out the e-brake mount was hitting the exhaust. Now that's very specific to my car because it's a custom exhaust, but let me show you. Right there you can see I made a modification to it. It's kind of hard to see, but right in that area, right there where my finger is, I gapped that. That actually was sitting up against the exhaust, and I didn't realize it because I installed the exhaust after the trans was in, so I didn't even notice it because it was kind of just touching. So there was a rumble there when I was on the freeway, and I'm going, oh man, why is there a rumble in this thing? And it's completely gone now. So the only thing that's definitely apparent now on the freeway, obviously, in this, is that it needs more gearing. It's too low. It'll get good mileage like this, but that's about it. The 283s are no good. The 320s will really spice it up a little bit. But other than that, I mean, it drives really, really nice now. So, anyways, we'll wrap this one up. It was fun to do this, and you know, the car's a little bit more raw now, and I kind of like that. So, anyways, we'll catch you next time.